Hello, and welcome everyone to today's conversation on centering young people as agents of change, where we will be discussing some of the lessons from the Learning and Action Alliance for Girls Agency, or LAAGA. My name is Jennifer O'Donoghue, and I am a Senior Fellow and Deputy Director of the Center for Universal Education at Brookings. It's my great honor to introduce today's conversation, which will focus on agency, broadly understood as the power and capacity to recognize and voice one's hopes, make decisions about one's life, and take action. Agency is not only key to educational achievement, it is also fundamental to full and equal participation in society more broadly. And agency has been at the heart of the work of today's panel, all of whom are members of LAAGA. I'm going to share my screen so that we can see the LAAGA members here. So here we are, the LAAGA folks. Initially convened in May of 2022, LAAGA is the Learning and Action Alliance for Girls Agency. It's a locally grounded global community of practice that engages in collaborative research and action. Composed of 23 leaders working to transform systems to advance gender equality, inclusion, and empowerment in and through education locally in 18 countries across Africa, America, Asia, and the Middle East, working with the Gender Equality in and through Education team at CUE. Over the past 16 months or so, we've been coming together to explore, experiment, learn in a network that crosses country and regional boundaries and seeks to both center the knowledge and expertise of its members, but also to amplify local priorities, local research, and local realities in global conversations. LAAGA envisions a world that values the knowledge and dignity of girls and young women, listens to their voices, and supports them in taking action to shape their own lives and those of their communities. And at the heart of LAAGA is the principle of co-creation. This vision that I just shared, as well as LAAGA's structure, LAAGA's operations, research questions, methodology, publications, and action plans are all the results of participatory and iterative processes of co-creation that are grounded in feminist and collaborative approaches to research and practice. LAAGA began with a very open invitation sent out by the Center for Universal Education in April of 2022 to 33 Echidna Global Scholar alumni to co-construct a learning community focused broadly on the topic of girls' agency. And as you can see here, we had a very high, very strong response from folks across the world who were interested in doing this work together. We began our collaboration by asking questions and beginning to create answers together, including questioning the very definition of agency and who gets to define agency. And with that, sorry, I'm having a little technical difficulty with that. I'm going to start out by sharing a video that really starts to get into the questions that we were asking together around the first question. Why do we need collective spaces to explore girls' agency?
Girls' agency is a critical but a comparatively newer area of focus for girls' empowerment and leadership.
In my locality and in the global south generally, girls and women have been marginalized over the years.
Girls have their own story to tell and should be allowed to tell their stories. Yeah, they're important stakeholders in the quest to write the narrative, which requires inclusion, participation, and empowerment.
And I feel that all those who are working on girls' agency need to join hands and have a forum available like we have LAAGA at CUE Brookings, where they can synergize, join hands, and do collaborative learning and take collective actions.
We need to improve girls' self-esteem. We need to gather the support of local leaders. We also need to understand the importance to have spaces so girls can express themselves in a safe space.
Great. So as you can see, those were several of the members of LAAGA, and to share more about LAAGA and the work that LAAGA has been doing over the past year and a half almost, we have 4 other members of the network. And joining us today from Kenya We have Joyce Kinyanjui, who is Managing Director of Zizi Afrique, as well as being an Echidna Global Scholar from 2016. Connecting from Bangladesh, Nasreen Siddiqa, Founder, President, and Executive Director of Education and Cultural Society, also an Echidna Global Scholar from 2019. From Nigeria, Adam Osai, who is Founder and Executive Director, of Mayen, as well as Regional Coordinator for NORAG Africa. Adam is a 2021 Echidna Global Scholar. And moderating today's conversation is Nangilai Atal. Nangilai is a former Senior Policy Specialist at the Technical and Vocational Education and Training Authority of Afghanistan, is the founder of HODE, and is currently at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. Nangilai, over to you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Hi, everyone. I'm joined by three incredible scholars in the field who work on this topic. They conducted extensive research. Before I provide a brief overview of the cases, the research cases, I would like to start by Adam, asking Adam, why does LAAGA focus on girls and girls' agency, in particular when it comes to marginalized girls?
Thank you very much, Nangalai, and warm good afternoon, good morning, and good evening to everyone joining us. When we consider that life's outcomes are shaped by experiences, the experiences of individuals, groups, and societies shape their outcomes, then we take a very critical look on those experiences. And in looking at experiences, we recognize that it is important to understand the degree of control that individuals have over their experiences. In total, in simplicity, this is when we're talking about agency. It represents, as Jennifer earlier stated in her introduction, the power or the capacity or to what degree and extent we have or play a role over our experiences. And so we're very interested in examining what control or to what extent girls can control their life's experiences. This will get us to therefore seek the opinion of girls. Because if I was interested in finding out your experiences, your priorities, and your needs, Nangilai, I would find out from you primarily. Because we understand that girls are the experts over their own experiences, their own priorities, their own needs, and they are powerful catalysts for transforming these very experiences and the outcomes arriving or deriving from those experiences. It is therefore critical for us at LAAGA to work directly with girls to understand what are the experiences of girls and to what extent do they control or participate in these experiences. And we're especially concerned about marginalized girls because we understand by the lines that we have socially constructed, which place girls at margins and fringes in society, we exclude them. And so to be able to really unearth their experiences and understand how these experiences arrive, we must include them intentionally. And that is why LAAGA is very interested, not only in agency, but specifically in girls as experts, and also interested in marginalized girls, because by default, the system is designed to exclude the voices and experiences of such girls. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam, for sharing that. The research that is conducted is quite extensive, covering 5 different countries: Bangladesh, Kenya, Uganda, Vietnam, and Zimbabwe. Overall, 19 field researchers in 11 online researchers participated in the process, along with 7 local government administrators. Around 400 girls participated in 15 formal and non-formal education spaces. So as you could see, that this research is brought forward with a lot of work from the field. In case of Bangladesh, it was conducted in the Penai district, which is a coastal community and is affected by flood and cyclones. And in the case of Kenya, it was conducted in the Karamojong region, which has 80% of people living below poverty. And in the case of Vietnam, it was conducted in the Lao Cai province, which is a mountainous region. In a lot of ethnic minorities or living in that part of the country. And in the case of Zimbabwe, it was conducted in the Zimbabwe district, which has a lot of political instability. That presents that where girls are facing a lot of challenges and grappling with a lot of problems. I think those different contexts give us quite a real overview of what is actually happening when it comes to girls either realizing, understanding their agency, and how that understanding could help us inform policy at the local and global level. I would like to ask Nasreen, in the case of Bangladesh, a case that actually I'm also interested in understanding, in particular, in how much Bangladesh made progress in terms of realizing girls' role overall in the society. Nasreen, how do girls define agency in Bangladesh?
Thank you, Nangilai. Hello, everyone. Yep. Today, I have the privilege of sharing with you the findings of the case study that delves into the agency of girls aged 10 to 19 years old in marginalized contexts in the coastal region of Feni, Bangladesh, where environmental challenges, socioeconomic vulnerabilities, and gender inequalities convert. The need for change is profound here. We have learned that these girls face a multitude of barriers within their families, communities, societies, and schools that hinder their ability to exercise agency. These challenges are compounded by natural disaster, child marriage, violence, and economic hardships. Yet, despite these obstacles, we have discovered that girls exhibit agency through various responses, including resistance, rejection, adaptation, and in some cases, apathy. So our findings highlight the importance of education, support from family and community, access to digital literacy, and mentorship as key factors in fostering agency. Girls have shared their aspirations to pursue higher education, challenge traditional gender norms, and be fearless in expressing their opinions without fear of judgment. The role of peer support, collective agency, and power of role models cannot be overstated here. These elements provide girls with the strength and resilience to overcome the challenge they face. Our research emphasizes the intersectionality of agency, recognizing that socioeconomic status, access to education, and family dynamics all play a crucial role in shaping girls' exercising agency. Moreover, we have learned that agency is not static. It evolves over time and influenced by life experiences and exposure to new ideas. So our recommendations of the research were based on policy reformation, community engagement programs, education transformation, including digital inclusion and empowerment through skill-based learning and skill-based education. Our study calls us to challenge deeply entrenched gender norms, promote comprehensive support for girls' agency, and create an environment where every girl can exercise her agency to the fullest and fulfill her boundless potential. The agency of girls is marginalized context is not just a theoretical concept. It is a real and pressing issue that demands our attention and action. As high-level researchers, donors, educators, practitioners, NGO experts, and civil society leaders, we have the power to effect change. Let us rise to the occasion to make a difference in the lives of these girls, not only in Feni, but also as a beacon of change in girls and women around the world. And that's what we LAAGA team is working for. Thank you for your commitment, and let us move forward together to empower these girls and create a more equitable and just society for all. Thank you, Nangialai. Over to you.
Thank you, Nasreen. Joyce or Adam, would you like to add in how similar girls defined agency in the cases that you looked at, the region that you have studied in your cases?
Yeah, I think I can go first. Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you, Nangilai. the girls defined agency as ability to make choices, everyday choices in the context where they are. And of course, they're in school, within their community, there are decisions that they make every day. For example, deciding to remain in school or not to get married early. So there are those choices. It's about leadership. It's about freedom. They talked about making choices, making decisions, and being able to see them through. And in the community where we were researching with the girls, they actually have a name for agency, which they call it a kemkem. It's in Turkana. And what was interesting is that that word can never be used on men. You know, it's a word that describes a woman who is intelligent, who is smart, who is a go-getter, who is wealthy, who is, it's like this all-powerful woman. And for them, she exhibits agency for them. So they do have a word that very well describes agency according to them. It's a girl or a woman who would have those characteristics. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Thank you very much. Adam, how it has evolved, the definition of girls' agency in your case, and perhaps how similar or perhaps different compared to the two other research cases.
So I will just speak about the findings from all the, 4 cases from a LAAGA position. What we see as coming out from the girls is that, agency exists on a spectrum as opposed to, the idea or notion of agency in binaries. And so we find that in some contexts, girls have, an appreciable or a range of options to exercise, whereas in other contexts, it's thinner and, there's very narrow opportunity for them to exercise control over decisions and actions and choices in those, in specific issues. For instance, you might see that when it comes to making friends or forming, peer associations, girls may have, a range of options to exercise. But when it comes to things that involve freedom of time, the ability to do this or that within the construct of available time, there may be more limitations. So it differs. And it's not a case of having agency or not having agency. It's often a case of what extent of exercise of power or control does a girl have. Another thing that is also important to share from that broader perspective is that the range of choices available to girls doesn't only stem out of inherent abilities of girls to make choices, but also the external, structural environment surrounding girls. And that involves the available resources, the, social norms and rules that dictate specific behaviors and expectations. And in context of climate ravaged, communities, sometimes this narrows the available resources such that a girl has limitations that go even beyond, norms and social, customs, but it's a situation or it's a function of the available, maybe farmlands have eroded, and so girls no longer even have harvest, or family livelihoods are so restricted that it affects the range of choices. So this is another important thing that we've discovered from the girls, that it goes beyond just their inherent capacities to make choices, but also to what extent does nature and society and social rules give them that range of options to exercise.
Thank you, Adam. I would like to come back to you, Joyce, in ask around the girls already have, the society, the community that you research already has a concept called a kemkem. So how is a kemkem exercised in the region that you looked at, and whether that a kemkem concept is broader in the region as well?
Thank you, Nangilai. Yeah, the term akemkem describes a girl who's focused, who is disciplined, who is able to speak out and challenge positions that they may not agree with. And the way they express this akemkem is they take up leadership positions. There are not many in marginalized communities, but they will take up leadership roles in school and also leadership roles within their churches. So you'll find they are able to express a kemkem, the leadership role in the settings where they most feel comfortable. And then they also talked about, especially in Uganda, they talked about speaking up whenever any violence is meted against them. And they talk to their mothers about it. They also express their determination and aspirations through the choices of careers that they aspire to pursue later in life. And they are working towards their grades, and they will describe to you very well that this is what they require. This is how they are working towards achieving their careers later in life. And in Vietnam, for them, they express agency or a kemkem. I think it's a word that can, because it just describes the sort of girl who has the capacity to know what they want, to speak out and to pursue what they want, to negotiate about things they believe in. I believe that word can be used across different contexts. And in Vietnam, it's about freedom. The girls talked about freedom. And as Adam has said, in Zimbabwe, they were talking about expressing themselves through Ubuntu. You know, whenever they are able to express themselves in the tenet that binds their community, which is Ubuntu philosophy, then they express themselves. So in everyday life, in school, in community, they do express characteristics that are needed, or attitudes and I can call them attributes that are necessary for one to exercise agency. Yeah.
Thank you, Joyce. Thank you very much. Now, in terms of exercising agency, there are probably some support mechanism that already exist in the local areas or in the country or by the government, there are definitely a lot of constraints also to girls exercising agency. So Nasreen, in your research, how those two played out in terms of what support mechanism existed, and also if you could share or outline of like how and what type of constraint existed when it comes to girls exercising their agency.
Yeah, Nandila, that's a great question. So let me figure out in this way that the girls defining agency from their perspective, and from their answers we can come to know that how do they exercise agency, or what is exercising agency to them. The girl in the LAAGA research project, including the specific case in Bangladesh, define agency as the ability to make choices, take actions, and exert influence over their lives and decisions. For these girls, agency is synonymous with empowerment and autonomy. It involves a sense of self-determination where they can pursue their goals, voice their opinions, and shape their future. Our immersion in the context allowed us to uncover the definitions of agency among these girls. While there is a common thread of empowerment, their understanding of agency varies based on socio-cultural norms, educational backgrounds, and personal experiences. For instance, many of them express that a central aspect of agency was their educational aspiration. They see education as a means to gain knowledge, secure a better future, and challenge traditional gender roles. This demonstrates how deeply rooted education is in their perception of agency exercising. And furthermore, these girls also discuss the evolving roles that they play in decision-making process, especially those related to their educational and life choices. They describe increasing involvement in family decision, highlighting instances where they had to negotiate with their parents to pursue education and delay marriage. However, they also acknowledge that societal norms and parental authority can constrain their autonomy. The LAAGA research members' immersion is in the context allowed us to capture the multifaceted nature of agency influenced by girls' unique experiences and challenges. It is a dynamic and evolving concept for these girls, deeply intertwined with the educational aspiration, family dynamics, and societal expectations. Directly, the girls said that the mindset and ability to freely express our mind, that is agency. One of the girls said, I love to sing, but it is restricted in my family. So to me, if I can freely, I have the freedom to sing, that's agency to me. And like Joyce, what she mentioned about the freedom, the girls said that in Bangladesh, girls said that agency to me means having the right to discuss my own rights. If there is a problem I face, I can't say if by saying something of my own. Societal barriers create a huge problem. If girls can unite together and try to do something, that is their agency. So we can find that how boldly and meaningfully they define his agency. Thank you, Nangalai.
Thank you, Nasreen. Thank you very much. That brings a lot of power to this discussion. I'm curious, Adam, if you would like to share anything around the constraints that girls are facing in terms of exercising their agency, and if there are any support mechanism either in the family or in the local governments and communities that helps them actually realize their potential.
Thank you, Nangilai. From the 4 case studies, we identify quite a number of, supportive mechanisms that girls point to as aiding them in the exercise of their agency. One stands out in particular, and it's the role of teachers. In many of the 4 contexts, the girls pointed to how the support from their teachers served as a means of encouragement, a means of motivation to pursue future careers and, dreams and aspirations. On the other hand, sometimes some girls would point to the fact that, parental authority figures in their lives also formed a sort of limitation on their dreams. In some contexts, fathers played a role in discouraging the pursuit of certain careers. For instance, careers traditionally ascribed to men, science, technology, engineering, mathematics sort of careers, and, were encouraged more in the direction of domesticated careers or roles, such as, nursing and things that had nurturing kinds of, meaning. Girls also pointed to peer groups as a form and a source of encouragement. Within peer groups, girls could share their frustrations, share their anxieties, and gain, a sense of solidarity. And so peer groups were critical. The role of technology was also mentioned by girls. Through technology, girls were able to identify role models. They talked about celebrities, female figures in society that defied or helped to sort of redesign for them their attitudes towards, female aspiration and success and accomplishment. Through technology and social media, they were able to encounter, women in public roles, women in famous, women in celebrity status. And so it helped to reshape their thinking about what is possible for them in the future. Through technology, they also were able to connect with mentors and access information. And so technology served as a means to complement what they were getting in Vietnam, for instance. Girls talked about how through technology, they could complement learning that they were deriving out in the classroom and support it through technology. So technology becomes a very pivotal instrument that shapes girls or influences or supports the exercise of girls' agency. Quite a number of other, mention of other supportive things like even the media and NGOs. The role of civil society organizations was also mentioned because girls said they provide us with training and capacity building. In the Uganda-Kenya border context, they talked about the role of churches because in churches, they could exercise leadership because in other spheres in their society and communities, leadership was not a role appropriate for women, but in churches, they could then begin to participate in leadership roles. And so sometimes it was spaces, sometimes it was, technology, sometimes it was people that served as, constraints or expanding elements for girls' agencies.
Thank you very much, Adam, for sharing those thoughtful and detailed elements in aspects. You talked about role models, your role models, all of you, for really bringing the local challenges that girls are facing in terms of exercising their agency, realizing their agency, and bringing that forward to the fora, to the discussion here. Very unique cases, and as soon as they are available, I would like to encourage everyone to read it, as there are a lot of rigor that went into it. So I'm sure that the audience are asking or having a lot of questions. I would like to hand it over to Jennifer. Jennifer might have questions from the audience. Over to you, Jennifer.
Great. Thank you, Nangilai. I've just been sort of distracted here listening to the great conversation. So we have had a number of questions that have come in, and I would encourage folks, if they want to drop questions into the chat now or using the question and answer function, that would be great, and we'll continue to bring in new questions. We did have a question around language, and the specific question was, how can learners' home languages be given a more visible role in educational programs? And I think, you know, this language issue is one that we have continued to talk through in doing our case research, and really trying to think through and troubleshoot together. How do we center young people's language in terms of how they think about agency and how we come to this work? So Joyce, I know you mentioned the Kem, which was one of the sort of words for agency in local language that came out of this work. Do you want to talk at all about how you and your team working on the Kenya-Uganda border really tried to center young people's local languages in this work?
Yeah, thank you, Jen. So it was very interesting. The team in Kenya and Uganda, we didn't define the word agency. We began by mapping the school, mapping the community where they live, and asking them the places they feel most comfortable, what they do there. And then we began asking them about their goals, you know, whatever goal, whether as simple as choosing what to wear, and would dig deep into understanding, you know, how do you make decisions? How do you process information? You know, how do you what are your goals? Who supports you in them? What are the characteristics that one needs? So we actually listed a whole list of characteristics or aspects or dimensions of agency. And then finally, at the end, after about an hour or so, we asked them, do you have a word or a name? Or can you, you know, that describes this person who's intelligent, a good negotiator, a good leader, you know, somebody who speaks up their mind, they challenge the social, cultural norms, you know, are able to stand up for themselves. And they quickly all agreed, yeah, we have a word, and it's called a kem, and it can only be used to describe a woman. It's never used to describe a boy or a man. So I think language, because the word agency is an English language, but I believe different communities, and we also saw the same in Zimbabwe, they actually have a word that describes a girl. Now this, for their case, is a girl who does not demonstrate agency according to their understanding and their culture. So language does play a role in discussing agency. And for us, it was interesting. We didn't begin with the language, which is Ngaturkana. We began by looking at the dimensions and the continuum of agency, and then finally settled on a word. Yeah.
Thank you. Nasrin, I know that language was also a big consideration in the work in Bangladesh. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah. You know that in our country we have a common language that is Bangla, but it varies in place to place, what we exactly call the local languages. And sometimes it is difficult for me as well to figure out some words, what they are talking about. So, and when we went to the girls, we did not define agency to them. We did not say why we are here to defining agency or something. We just made some very liberal conversation with them, had showed them some photos and also some videos, and afterwards we made the environment. But the challenging part was that you know that they are not open to the unfamiliar and the senior, and especially who came from the privileged society or the capital. So we took the enumerators and data collectors from the university level students, female students from that area of any district, and it really worked that they could communicate with them, and the conversation during the time of HGI, they talked to them, they just open their mind to them that yes, these are the things, these are the questions. So it was very interesting, and I also tried to learn the exact language of that local dialect, and I did the conversation. So in this way we need to communicate, because we always say that language should not be the barrier for anyone. So I think we should consider it wherever we go to express, and if we want to see that women and girls are expressing their mind. Yeah, Jen.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much. You know, this sort of what you were talking about just now in terms of the, you know, even when there is maybe a common national language, the importance again of like when you're going to a local community of really understanding language in that community and how language is used in that community, but and other contextual factors, as you've all been talking about in the conversation today. We have another question that I think is very linked to this, which is, you know, should agency be defined or measured differently in different contexts, or could the definition of measurement of agency apply universally? And this is also something that has been part of the broader conversation within the LAAGA network. I know, Elim, it's something that you and I have talked about in different moments. Do you want to maybe take on this question about the relationship between the contextual and the global or universal?
Thank you very much, Jen, and to the person who asked the question, thank you for your interest in our work and in our findings. It's something that has struck us in the findings, how very contextual agency presents and manifests itself. And so in meaning making, we've learned that it's very crucial to come in from the context of the girl. And this, you know, relates specifically to even how agency manifests and presents itself. So when we think and consider the fact that, you know, gender socialization is done through socialization agents, you know, common amongst which are families, our communities, even the media, and you know, religious institutions, you know, influential individuals, then we think of how rooted these forms of agents of socialization are in our social context. Then you realize that it's a very, you know, ill-advised task to begin to uproot a context and place it in another and expect complete replication or uniformity. It's very crucial that we approach agency from the direct context of the society or the environment and community in which the girl finds herself. And this links to the statement earlier made that, you know, I think it was Joyce who said, we don't even give her a definition. We go in and engage in meaning making. And that's why even when you look at the approaches and, you know, adopted in the various case studies, we find sometimes that the researchers would even use drawings. And so we just want to see, what is the picture of the girl today? What is the picture of that the girl desires of herself tomorrow? What is the bridge that links her there? And in drawing that bridge and the things that must occur to get her to that desired end, the girl begins to express through art or drawing the idea and the notion of agency. And in one society, it may involve, you know, schools, formal institutions. In other contexts, it might involve informal learning institutions. It might involve marketplaces. It might involve just being able to move freely in well-lit streets. We saw in the case of Bangladesh that was agency to the girl, that the streets are well-lit and she has access to a bicycle. And in another context where roads and bridges and skyscrapers exist, that will not make any sense, you know? And so a definition coming out of Bangladesh in that specific context in Bangladesh to replicate it in the context of the girl with huge skyscrapers will lack merit or meaning. So this is why we found through LAAGA research that agency, though in meaning appears universal, in language is very context specific.
Great, thank you. I'm just going to pause and see if any of other LAAGA members want to jump in on this question of the local versus the global. Nangile.
Yes, I would like to reflect on this. I think the cases, the research that is conducted is a good effort in the process of bringing voices from the global south that brings the new definition or the definitions that were actually missing in the discussion previously. So I think that it's a good time to on one hand study and question the way knowledge was and is constructed in the global north, but at the same time conduct research that could bridge and fill the gap that already existed, especially also how not just the knowledge that is constructed in the global north, but the economic system also that is constructed in the global north that is affecting the livelihoods of women around the world. The economic system that is largely, as we now know, is dominated by men and the acquisition of wealth. So I think it's really critical time. I would say that the effort that the researchers, the scholars put into the process of really bringing those definition forward, I think that is the right course that we need to follow moving forward, so that also voices from the global south are heard as a part of the dialogue, and not just taking the global north definition as the universal itself.
Thank you both so much. I'm sort of thinking back to the initial days of LAAGA and our conversations around agency, and going back again to that question of what is agency and who gets to define agency, and what you're saying, Nangilai, of the importance of having a diversity of voices who are in that definition and in the construction of that definition. And even thinking about, many of the much of the work that has come out of the global north and focus on agency has had a very sort of individualistic take on agency, that it's something inside of the individual in terms of competencies or beliefs or skills. And really the work of LAAGA, and I think what's coming out of this case research that you've all been talking about this morning or this afternoon or this evening, wherever you may be, but really around the situational components of agency, the relational components of agency, the structural and systemic factors that are involved in the exercise of agency. And so, again, while we think of the local, bringing into the global conversation, I think it's a lot of that, what you're saying, right, is that from these local experiences and understandings of agency, we can complexify the conversation around agency at the global level. So I want to jump to another question here. And this one is around sort of the balance. Someone says, how do you balance the delicate bridge between empowering girls in marginalized societies while not exposing them to harm from bullying or violence or other types of harm? And I know, Nasrin, this is something that you've talked about and that you've, has come out of your work. Maybe you want to kick us off in answering this question?
Yeah, sure, Jen. Yes. If we see that what constraint exercising agency, the girls directly say that deeply entrenched societal norms, including traditional gender roles, often constrain our agency. And also they said about we are not getting support from the family and society, child marriage, another factor. And all of these put on the gender-based violence and also this type of insecurity, bullying. And the strength of LAAGA members' immersion is the context is evident in the ability to identify and understand these complex dynamics. So here I can mention something that, yes, girls feel so unsafe. And one of the girls said, when we asked that, what are the things which help you to exercise agency? They said that safe transport and street life light. So we can understand that why did they say that? Because they face this type of violence and bullying. And they say that if I have what Adam mentioned, that they asked for the bicycle because of, they say that if I have the bicycle, I can easily pass the market, local market, where I always face this type of teasing and bullying. So almost in all school we found that they are so inspired to make a local agency team or something like agency club, girls agency club. And they say that in our club, we want to include educators, local representatives and law enforcement agencies, local leaders and family members, so that they can understand where is our problem, why we cannot exercise our agency and cannot continue our education. And we can discuss openly about our problem, and we can raise our voice. Actually, it is a total effort of the community, and all the stakeholders should take initiative to overcome this problem on girls. Yeah, Jen.
Thank you, Nasrin. Joyce, Adam, Nagilai, any thoughts on this question about this sort of balance between empowerment and possible exposure to harm?
Thank you, Jen. I'll just come in here to say that this is why LAAGA is so important, and the approach we take, because in for the first time, centering the girl as the voice in our findings, a lot of, information has emerged, such that we are really stressing on the relational piece of agency, as opposed to the previous, tendency to view agency from a strictly, individual position of what are your cognitive abilities or capacities inherently to even exercise it. We're looking at even the surrounding situation of the girl, the relationships, that, surround her, the structural environment. And within that, what it therefore means is that agency cannot be defined in isolation of these constructs. And so in the process, what it means is that bullying emerges as a deterrent or impediment to agency. The structural or the relational becomes woven into the very definition. We therefore have a lens for what are the capacities, and that moves to the external capacities, enabling environment for that exercise of power to choose and to act. It's all woven into the definition. And therefore, the finding, when it goes out, guides the policymaker, guides the practitioner, guides the individual at home, the caregiver, the school provider, to say, as you are empowering the girl to make decisions about her future on her now, you must have a lens for who stands in the way of that. Is there a bully? Is there a sibling? Is there an older sibling who will cap her? Is there, a teacher who will continue to say, no, don't go for STEM? So as you're empowering her, you're also very sensitive for those deterrents or limitations or obstacles in that environment. And if you do one and fail to do the other, you haven't supported agency. So that's why it's critical that you take that broad aerial position. And so any person working to advance girls' exercise of agency comes in from that, point of view, to say, I supported her to reach her goal vis-a-vis the diagram, right? The dream for today versus tomorrow. And I transformed the environment wherein she exists to also enable her to reach that desired environment. So what will happen is that systems will be designed to detect and prevent bullying. Systems will be designed to detect, monitor, and prevent gender violence. Systems will be designed to detect, prevent, and, alert the world to anything that potentially represents a threat, a risk, or a deterrent to that girl's future desired outcome emerging.
Thank you so much, Adam, for your very powerful answer to that question. And I think pulls us actually into another question that we received that I think is really interesting and very linked to what you're saying. And actually, I just see some other questions coming in too that I'm going to try to wrap into one question. And Joyce, I'm going to turn these over to you. So I'll just to get us started. But the general question is, what is hindering adults today from engaging in sort of the constructive relationships that would support girls' agency in the context that we were working in. What competencies must adult leader allies have? And then there's a question in particular about the role of men as allies in expanding and supporting girls' agency. So really wrapping three people's questions into one there around what did we learn about adults? What do adults need to learn and to do in order to support agency?
Thank you, Jen. I'll try to answer that. We learned a lot from the girls themselves. And picking up from where Adam left, the girls, they know the dangers that exist in exercising agency. And for them, the fact that they were in school in itself, in places where maybe completion rate in primary is 30, 40%. So they were exercising agency by just waking up and going to school every day. That in itself was a mark of agency. And for them, they know who supports them and who doesn't support them. So they are able to identify people who will prevent them from exercising agency. Now, to the question about adults, I think it's the tension which we had spoken about earlier, because agency must be seen within a context. For example, the girls will talk about they don't want to get married, for example, until they complete school. That in itself defies the culture of the community. So there's this tension that exists between the adults in this girl's life, what they know is best for the girl, and yet at the same time, it's the culture that binds the people. People are socialized into thinking and behaving in a certain way. So that tension, I think, holds back the parents. They will give up. And they want to conform. And that came out very strongly in Zimbabwe, where the Ubuntu philosophy is so entrenched in the community that I am because we are. So the need to conform, to fit in, vis-a-vis getting empowered and bringing in this tension and being different, that I think came up quite well. And so for the adults, some of them really do want to support their children, but there are other limiting factors. For example, poverty. And poverty is so dehumanizing that people don't have choices. Girls talked about, compromises sometimes they make, even with their bodies, simply because they need certain basic things. So when you have such unsurmountable issues or seemingly insurmountable, for example, poverty, culture, patriarchy. So those are some of the things that will make parents, knowing what they need to do will limit their capacity to support the girls. But I think the beauty of it, as Adam has said, the girls were able to speak up. They know the spotlights in their community. They know who to go to. They know in the school. So I think it's building their agency in being able to speak out. And that would help in terms of their safety. And also, as Adam has said, for us who are involved in programming, we need to bring the adults near them, especially the mothers. All the girls talked about their mothers. There were male relatives. There were few and far in between, but mostly at that age, they are very close to their mothers. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. We have more questions coming in, and unfortunately, we don't have a lot more time. I am going to, we'll save the questions and we will make sure that we respond to folks offline to some of the questions that are coming in. But as a way of moving us towards our closing, I'd like to ask each of you to take maybe 20, 30 seconds. If you were to identify sort of what we still don't know, what is for you the next big thing that we need to work on together in LAAGA in really pushing forward our understanding and action on girls' agency, what are you prioritizing about what needs to come next? And Nasrin, maybe I'll start with you.
Yep. Yes, Jen. While LAAGA research is providing a solid foundation for understanding girls' agency in marginalized contexts, for the underprivileged communities. There is still much to learn and uncover. Girls genuinely mentioned about female supportive system, what Adam mentioned nicely, that they were asking for the very good infrastructure and system which will support them. And they have very basic need, what they are not getting. They said about the girls' friendly society, and I think we have to work here in depth. So we have enough opportunities as well as challenges, but if we can collaborate with others and we can give a leapfrogging, we can go through a leapfrogging method to overcome these challenges. And these questions, cases, and our upcoming LAAGA report will guide future investigations and contribute to our ongoing efforts to empower girls and promote gender equality. I think this is just the starting, what we have done, and our case report will say more, and I think we have many fields to work together.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, Nasrin. Adam, over to you. Same question, 20 seconds. What are you prioritizing in your next steps with LAAGA?
I think that given what we've learned now, it's interesting how this same model will help us to unearth a lot of discoveries in the realm of girls affected by conflict and girls living with disabilities. Already, girls in rural parts, girls in, poverty-ridden contexts, and girls affected by climate disasters face numerous challenges. Many of these are socially constructed margins that we place them in. But when you encounter girls who even already suffer, limitations in that society deems affects their inherent abilities, what it does is it compounds the exclusionary nature of the discrimination that they experience. I think that it's interesting for LAAGA in the next frontier to dig deeper into these very unique profiles of girls, the girls that live with disabilities who experience layers of exclusion, and girls in conflict-ridden contexts. We need to go in and still reaching out to them as experts to hear what is agency and what are the limitations, so that we lift those limitations and allow the potentials of these profiles of girls to actually be expressed.
Thank you so much, Adam. And you spoke to one of the questions that came in around specifically agency related to girls with disabilities. So a very important part of LAAGA's work in our next phase. Joyce, over to you. What are you prioritizing in our next steps with LAAGA?
I think it's to dig deeper into how gender roles do affect expression of agency, because that I think is very powerful. And I would also be interested in other communities. We all went to patriarchal societies, and I would be curious to find out, in matriarchal societies, how do they define agency, in different contexts, so that we are able to look at the loop, and maybe able to understand socialization, how it affects definition of agency and expression of it. Thanks, Jen.
Okay, thank you, Joyce. And Nangilai, please close us out. What are the priorities for you moving forward?
First of all, definitely focusing on the role of men, on how they can be supportive in the process. I had a good friend who has been jailed in Afghanistan by the de facto authorities, but was released last week after 7 months just for supporting girls' education. No crime, nothing. So they couldn't find anything. So the role of men is really powerful in the process to stand up and be support agents. Besides that, I will be focusing on girls' access to skills, in particular in agriculture education, in the food production process. That's the daily reality for many of the girls, women and girls who are facing in low resource contexts. So that is what I would be focusing and researching and bringing to the discussion here.
Great, thank you, Nangilai. And Adam, Joyce, Nasser, and Nangilai, I want to thank you all again for being here to share some of the lessons and the learnings, important learnings that are coming out of LAAGA, to give us an idea of what's coming next. I want to share my screen again because I learned that because of my technical difficulties at the beginning, didn't really get on screen for long enough, the full group of LAAGA, but really just want to, let everyone know that this is the face of these are the faces of LAAGA. You've heard today about some of the work that we have been doing. We will continue to engage in this work. We have upcoming publication of the 4 case reports that were mentioned here today, as well as an overall synthesis of the work that will be published soon. We'll be having 4 regional events in the locations of the cases, so in Vietnam, Bangladesh, Kenya-Uganda, and Zimbabwe in the first half of 2024. So if you're in any of those areas, please be on the lookout for our events. And just to say that, as you heard here from the 4 LAAGA members today, LAAGA is actively thinking about and prioritizing what comes next for this group. And really we'll be working on, continuing to strengthen capacity to support the agency of marginalized girls by engaging local girls, their families, their communities, practitioners, policymakers, all of these groups across local ecosystems to take action, really working to continue the research and digging into these relationships between research, policy, practice, and girls' agency, to both enrich what we know locally and what we know globally and how we think about it. We didn't talk as much today about the girl-centered methodologies and approaches that have been used in this research, but we have a great blog out around that. I encourage you to read that, as well as continue to be on the lookout. We will continue to promote girl-centered methodologies in research, practice, and policy, and share what we have been learning in our work around that, and really just wanting to grow the movement. And that means deepening relationships and fostering connections for collective impact. If we want to really promote girls' agency, as the LAAGA folks today mentioned, it requires all of us working from whichever part of the systems we may be to transform systems in ways that support girls in exercising their agencies to take action in their own lives and the lives of their communities and the world. So just want to encourage you again to please stay up to date with LAAGA, check in with all of us and around the work that we're doing. And thank you so much for being here in this first of what we hope are many conversations around girls' agency across the world. So thank you and have a great day.